Great. So welcome everybody. I'm so happy that all of you are into this webinar session. We have with us a very illustrious panel of four wonderful people. I'm going to introduce all of them very shortly, in a very short way, because each of them have a very illustrious career and an illustrious background. However, I will start in an alphabetical order. I will start with Abhishek. Abhishek Rastogi heads the design for jewelry at Titan and for over a decade now. He is an accessory design graduate from NIFT, and he has been involved in various collections, including in the export side. His passion for crafts and handcrafted techniques led him to taking up his current position. Design to Abhishek is not just a profession, it's an expression of a way of life, which we believe that he has excelled in. His work has garnered various prestigious awards, including the CII Industrial Design Award and various other. It's a large list of awards, so I'm going to leave that for now, but we all know Abhishek has a very wonderful background. Welcome, Abhishek. The next panelist in the alphabetical order is Aparna Gujral.
Hello.
She is an independent design consultant working with India's largest manufacturers. She has a work experience of nearly 25 years, not only in India, but also in the US and Singapore. She is not only a textile designer, but she's also one of the few formally educated jewelry designers in this country, also graduated from NIFT Delhi in 95. She has, of course, had a proud winner of the French government scholarship that took her to Paris to study design from the finest couture institutes of France. Aparna's forte is her ability in design management. Her experience has led her to understand the fine nuances of how design can deliver differently towards revenue-generating products and brand building. There are several more achievements of hers, but roughly, she's also been part of the Antique and Contemporary Jewelry course in Sotheby's, London, Trend Forecast workshops, Art Directed Style Vision Paris, and so on. It's a large list, but we all know she's a very accomplished woman. Then, of course, I'm going to speak about Farah. All of you do not need a very much introduction to this wonderful personality in the field of design and jewelry. Farah, welcome again. Farah is, as we all know, if you look at her website as well, it's one of the most innovative websites of India. She's not just a designer, but an artist of masterpieces, and as she rightly says, an orator of stories. Her creations are conceived in her active imagination that allows her freedom to make the impossible possible. She's been featured on many magazine covers, including Forbes India magazine and Indian Luxury. Farah has been featured in UK, and therefore she has an illustrious international exposure. Winner of many prestigious awards and accolades, ranging from Outstanding Woman Achievers Awards, the Woman of Substance Awards, Farah epitomizes the modern woman of today, one that is courageous and strong, one that supports social causes and makes a difference in someone's life. Farah has a statement to make of herself, and we all know that is true. Farah does not love design. She does not love design. She lives to design. And lastly, I'm going to speak about the good friend and one of my most accomplished members of the jewelry fraternity in India, Mr. Hemant Shah. Mr. Hemant Shah is an IITian. This is something that we miss in our industry. From IIT Kanpur, Hemant Shah, after graduation, started his own software consultancy. One of his clients, Mahindra Brothers, was instrumental in his foray into diamond and jewelry industry, setting up their jewelry division. He has been a consultant to many, many organizations in India, and thanks to him, there's been a lot of modernization that has happened in the industry. He firmly believes that the industry needs to make the shift from selling to marketing and to invest in and develop a culture of innovation. Therefore, he's an ideal person for today. He also has a very unique brand called Alcraftist, which combines very traditional craft of India into wearable and displayable jewelry and pieces of art. He's currently an independent consultant and conducts workshops across. And he actually has thought shops rather than workshops. Therefore, we would leave that at that as a wonderful and a bright career. And he is the youngest member of the fraternity.
Thank you. Thank you, Vinod bhai. That's what the right thing is.
Right. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do today is quickly go through about 14 different touch points. And being panelists of great caliber, I'm looking to have the audience really gain an insight into what a new collection is. We're going to be focusing on new collections. That means the jewelry industry has been in India for over 2,000 years very actively, although could be 5,000 years. But what we do need today is a complete newness and a freshness. And therefore, this particular webinar focuses on how do you create new collections in our industry. So I'm going to ask one by one a question, and I would allow each one to have a minute or a minute and a quarter. You can stretch it here and there, but the objective is to get your perspective into each of these areas. Now, I'd like the first question to be to all the panelists, and it could be any one of you can answer. Can we have a definition of what is new? Because we all think new is new, but what really is new? If each of you, please go forward. What is the definition of a new collection?
Does anyone want to go first, or should I go first?
Go first.
Go ahead, Farah.
To me, anything new is something that is exciting, something that is innovative, something that hasn't been done before, or if it has been done before, it's presented in a new manner, where it has a new language, a new twist. So for me, that is new. And when I strive to do a new collection, it's based on what inspires me. What is close to me, what is the concept I have in mind, and who is the person I'm designing the collection for, because that's the most important, the client. Who are you designing the collection for? So for me, that is how I go about it.
Great. Hemant bhai, you want to start on what is new?
Pretty much like what Farah said, for me, new is anything that has not been done before. I work on concepts, I work on product, I work on thoughts that are always unique, which you would not find. In fact, one of my brands is actually called Hamesha Hatke, because anything you find in that brand, I'm pretty sure you haven't seen it anywhere else. Okay. I will share some images of what I mean by new in some time when we talk of concepts and designing. But for me, new is anything that you do different. So that's what my definition of new.
All right. Aparna?
I think we are all kind of overlapping each other on the thought of, when we say that new is, according to me, also something that has not been seen before. And I would add a little bit more to it. And I would say that when I do something new and when we try to create something new, we try to see that it's very relevant to today's day and time. It cannot be, it cannot be something that's 20 years ahead of time, because then that's not contemporary and new. So new needs to be relevant to me today. And it means about being very sensitive to what is happening to the society, culture, politics, everything that's around you, and to be very, very sensitive about these aspects when we come out as designers for something new.
That means a very aware person needs to bring out something.
Very aware concept.
Aware. Yeah. Abhishek, I'm going to add a little twist to this question. How does one keep, something new to me may be something old to somebody else. So how does one really make something new that is really new in all perspective, especially if there's a design competition or it is a new collection? We think it's new, but how do you keep track of what really is new? How do you assess the newness?
Very interesting question, in fact. So I would say that, it's every designer's perspective of looking at a thing and or of looking at an inspiration and then giving your own twist to it is what makes, a thing which is very personal to you, thing which is very personal from a, design perspective. Now, adding to that, there are various features that can probably make something very starkly different from what has been created before. So, for example, if you have a deep design story, because the moment you have that, it is your narrative, it is not somebody else's narrative, and then add another layer of probably a material innovation to it. How you combine material, what R&D you are doing on a material. Is there a new kind of a cut to a color stone, for example, that you want to combine it with? So something of those sorts, or if you probably mix it up with a innovation in terms of setting, in terms of technique, manufacturing technique, all of this put together creates something new. And as Aparna was saying, consumer centricity, being abreast of trends, all of these things when put together gives you a magical concoction of a very new idea.
Yeah, great. Thanks. That's a nice answer. Farah, I'm going to ask you, because some of your creations are so unique, how do you manage to bring, how does one keep that new being very, really innovative, very hatke, as Hemant Bhai said? What is the possibility that you think is new and you create, but it's already been done by somebody else?
So for me, how it works as a designer is I'm always driven by new challenges, and I'm like that newness comes with looking to use new materials, new gemstone cuts, new ways of setting in jewelry. So I'm always looking at new product innovations as far as the material itself. Can I use something different to give it a new look? So right now, my newly launched rings of Amira, this collection, actually what I'm wearing on my hand here. So we did them in various colors, and I used a new product. I used a mix of resin and ceramic to do this, with gold and diamonds. When I try to do something, I want to do something that is difficult to make, is one of a kind, is unique, because that sets you apart. I don't want to do something that can be easily replicated. I want to do something that, even if it is going to be replicated, it's so tough for it to be replicated that the person replicating it thinks twice wanting to replicate it. So if you really want to be ahead of your game, it's very important to think out of the box. Think of new ways of setting, do an R&D, look at other brands, international brands, how they're working. Like right now, I'm very curious to work with aluminium as a metal. This brand called Emmermill is using it abroad, and I'm very excited with the kind of metal textures and the colors that aluminium provides. So I'm actually looking at working with that, and I'm trying to see how I can do that. We have titanium, we have aluminium, so a ceramic. So if you want to be above your game, you need to be looking at new ways of manufacturing that the market doesn't endorse. That maybe you need an engineer to help you with, or you need a scientist to tell you also, because it involves metal, it involves different materials, and that's what I would tell people. Look at different ways of making your products, and you will always be successful.
So what you're saying, Farah, is that we, as traditionally called within quotes jewelers, need to expand the mind to go beyond gold, silver, diamonds, etc. Think completely into new materials, mixed mediums, and do things that don't limit your thinking. Then you bring out a larger canvas for us to play on.
I just want to add here, we were always doing gold, 22 carat, and we're now in 18 carat. But if you look at the market, it's become so accepting of silver jewelry in contemporary forms. Earlier we only did silver jewelry in tribal and Indian forms, but people now, youngsters, are wanting to pick up silver jewelry, with Pandora doing it, with Tiffany doing it. They want to pick up silver jewelry. Now you have Carrot Lane trying Shire, and they're doing brilliantly well on their website. So what we need to do is we need to work with alternative material, not just limit ourselves thinking that the customer only wants gold and diamonds, or emeralds and rubies, but look out of the box and look for different alternative materials. And if you have a story, your collection is going to be successful, because what you're selling is not just a product, but you're selling an emotion, a story, and all of it that goes with it.
Now I'm going to go to the next question. Thanks a lot. This was very enlightening. The next question that I'm saying from this perspective of this particular webinar is, what really is a copy? Can you fall into a trap of being a copier, although you did not intend to be a copycat? Is there a danger, and what should we do to avoid that? I'll start with Abhishek.
Uh, yeah, see, unknowingly, yes. I mean, there are chances that you may create something which is very similar or very close to something which someone else has already thought about. Because because there are various stages to your journey. I mean, you may have started your journey much later, and someone may have already finished their journey in the space of design, for example. Also, so that may definitely happen. But therein comes the whole thing about reading, observing, exploring a lot more. The more you know about your category in which you are designing, for example, we're talking about jewelry over here, the more you are aware of it, the less chances are that you would be unknowingly creating something which is a replica of something which is already existing. And as I was saying earlier, if you, for example, in your own design process, add a lot of complexity, add a lot of layers to it, which kind of keeps building that complexity into your product, I'm sure the end result is going to be in a way very different from what someone else would have created, even though it may be belonging in a similar kind of a space. But then that is your creation, because it will definitely have your touch to it, be it in terms of material or styling,
Right.
or the way it is to be worn, so I think that's very different.
Great, nice. Aparna, what do you say? How do you avoid the pitfall of falling into a copy when you didn't intend to be a copy? And what could be the way to avoid it?
This is something that every designer at some point of time is faced with. And very often, like very junior, younger designers are forced upon by their employers that, this is how I want it, and I want a replica and, of something like this exactly. And at that point of time, maybe in her own way, she is not able to do that. But I think, Abhishek said, it unknowingly also happens. But your question saying that how do you avoid it? I think it is not something that you cannot avoid, because every time that I tried to create collections with my team, we used to actually have a certain time spent on looking if this has been created before in the industry. You have internet that covers any country, any product. You can put in keywords searches, and we actually every time we came out with a collection, we have shared that with our marketing and sales team, saying, this collection has also been done by this brand, but this is how they have done it. Or if we are doing birds, then this is how Farah has done it, or this is how someone else has done it. And we actually let them know, because we don't want them to face a customer tomorrow where that, but so and so has already done it, so why are you creating this? So we have actually made a conscious effort on doing a research of if this particular design had been done before, and how has it been executed. Because like we all are saying out here, even the way it's executed, not just the way a pencil moves, even the way it's executed, applying the latest technologies like we have right now in Emerald. I mean, there are all these different detailings that you can add on to concepts, and you can completely stay away from creating a concept that has happened before. And there are several conscious ways that designers can do it.
All right. Farah, what would you say? How do you avoid the pitfall of copying when you didn't intend to copy?
I agree with a bit of what Abhishek said and a bit of what Aparna said, because one is we live in the world of the internet. So if anyone is copying, then you are not being responsible to yourself as a brand, or a jeweler, or as a designer, because it is your duty to do that research. Today you have, Pinterest. You go onto Pinterest and you take a picture, and you can actually see many designs that will show up the same, and you know exactly what fits the bill of what you're doing. I would say ethics in our line of work is really important. So you may get away with a copy once, but if you do it all the time, you will be pulled out. We're in the line of we're today in the world of the internet. One click of a button, and you could be once you upload anything on the internet, it's going to be it's going to come back to you. So to people who do copy, I would say it's not a good idea because you're not building yourself as a label. And do your research, like Aparna said, because you're a responsible designer. So it is upon you to make sure that you don't copy. Of course, there may be some lookalikes, but if the technique is different, then you'll know that there was a thought applied and it wasn't meant to be a copy, but it just happened to look a little similar. But more or less, you can tell a copy when people try to make it exact, or they think if they change a little setting here and there, it may change. But that's not what one should do. One should be more responsible and do their research and homework. That's what
Thanks.
I say this because I've actually sued people who've copyrighted me. I mean, who've infringed on my copyrights, and I have actually got money out of them, and they're not small amounts of money, large amounts of money, because I make it an effort to copyright my designs, and I do not take to plagiarism very kindly. So the moment I find anyone, I go after them legally. So I'm telling you to people in the trade, protect your things and designs. And even when we did a collection with Tanishq, I did a branded collection with Tanishq. I remember insisting to Tanishq that I'm going to copyright this because I don't want anyone else to copy it. And then come back and Tanishq will tell me, but that this is a third party design and you gave it to us. So I was protecting myself.
Right. Great. Hemant bhai, you have a point to add on that?
Well, I follow a little different procedure. I am not a designer in the real sense. So when I get a thought, whether it is while I am having my shots or otherwise, that's how Thought Shots gets its name. So what I do is that I will work on a concept and work on the category on which I'm going to come up with something in that concept. After that, I research to see that there is nothing similar available. Okay. And whenever I work, I make it a point never to look for inspiration in the traditional sources or traditional places. So if I can share my screen, I'd like to show you a concept which I did last year.
Yeah, go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Which was very well received by my customers, both in India and abroad. And sorry, this is the wrong thing. I have to share this. Can you see it?
We can see it.
Okay, so this was a concept which I worked on and I called it zero wastage. Okay, so what you will see in this is that there is one sheet of card paper that we use and we have cutouts there, and those cutouts are rearranged to make this whole frame, which is a gifting item for Mother's Day. So you have a mother on one side, you have the child on the other side, and then the cutouts are rearranged in the center to show you the child hugging the mother. Okay, so we worked with quite a few designs on this. There was another one that says, inside, outside, and beyond, a mother's love can do it all. So you see a pregnant lady, and then when the baby is born, the baby is being carried by the mother. So the mother's love from inside and outside, it is all known. And we work on a concepts. Then I get my designers to work on the other thing. So this is a house where it's filled with happy children. So this is what how I developed my new concept. Or this is for Father's Day. Okay. A swing which has been cut out and shown the way it is, you can very clearly see what the father is doing.
Yeah. So you have gone out of the normal, conventional areas of thinking and created innovation.
Yes, absolutely. And that is what we always aim to do. In fact, if you see this, we got an order from some client in the US, and this is about hanged to death. It's about the corona, or how the corona has been broken up and made into a football and the spokes of a football shoe. And of course, we did this for a company in India where they had close to about 150 people who got tested positive. And as they recovered, they were all sent this with their name and the thing engraved on it to show that they have conquered or hunted it down.
Right. Right.
This
Great.
is how we work. This is the kind of things that we do. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Aparna, you wanted to show something on. Are you ready to show that?
Yeah, sure. So basically, we were talking about how concepts could happen. So I also wanted to actually take the opportunity. Um, I think what I wanted to share was that we had actually several years ago, when I was working with Ganjam, we had been approached by the BirdLife International, which is an NGO, that creates, I would say, the awareness on conserving birds. And at that point of time, we were asked by Her Royal Highness Princess Takamoto, who was the president of the BirdLife, to create a collection to commemorate the BirdLife project. And we, at that point of time, were, as designers, struck, because this was in 2000, between 2001 and 2005, where the industry was flooded with very simple designs, which were like nakshatra inspired, or the entire gold jewelry looking product. And we didn't know how do we go about now creating high end product with birds in it. And so we actually looked at our own national bird, and we said, why don't we look at the peacock? And this is at a time where, like I mentioned, there was no really motive that had entered into product. And we said, we're going to look at our own national bird, and we're going to try and create an awareness about how this bird itself needs to be conserved. And we actually created a collection called Ganjam, called Exotica in Ganjam. And from there on, we created a much larger explicit product range that actually fitted in. But what was interesting is what happened after there on till date in the market. I mean, the peacock has been flooded. It's all over. You can see different kinds of peacocks. You can see there are certain images of how we created a product, and today someone else who has that product too. So this is, I wouldn't call this plagiarism, but I would definitely say that there is a certain trend that got kickstarted, and people have looked at it, absorbed it. People have been inspired by it, and maybe it has received a great response from their own customers. So there is a market that we moved from trying to take away from straight lines, pendants, padakas, nakshatra, into like a bird across our neck and ears. So this was something that I did want to bring across.
Okay, nice. Okay, I'm going to shift slightly the track onto something else now. If one were to look at a collection, what would be the attributes, necessary attributes? Because we all know that we want to be innovative. Yeah. And the buzzword is innovation, think out of the box, do what nobody has done. But still, in a very vibrant industry like what we are, it's so complex to be original. If you look around the world, there are only a few originals. All of them are what you call in Hindi, 1920s, that 1920 kind of thing. It's little bit here, there, little bit this twist, that twist. How does one really come out, and how does one take that risk in investing into the product and the business and the promotion and the costs of it? How does that happen? Does one need to be small to do it? Does one need to be big to do it? What is it? I'll start with Farah.
Yes, I want to answer that. So you said there are very few people who are original, and I differ with that because I believe that we are all original. I mean, I'm unique, you're unique, Hemanta is unique, Abhishek, Aparna, all of us are unique, and all the people watching this are unique. The problem is that most people in India don't want to tell their story. Okay, they're more eager to take other people's concepts, change a debate, and pass it off as their concept. So, to all the jewelers who are on this chat and on this webinar listening, I want to tell you that all of you have stories. You all come from certain cities, certain backgrounds of jewelry backgrounds. Those places could be from Gujarat, from Rajasthan, from I don't know, Haryana, Chandigarh, Punjab, down south. Work on your story of where you come from, who you are, who is your client. Okay, because that story is going to help you make a collection for your client. So the first thing you need to know is, who is your client base? Is your client base a conservative client? Is the client a more, modernistic, contemporary client? Is it an older client? Is it a younger client? Is it mass market? Is it upper HNIs? Those things are very important to know who your client is. Secondly, you need to know who you are, because does your story go with your client sensibility? Like, you need to know that, okay, I am this person, I dress like this, I have my cultural values like this. Is my cultural story going to resonate with my client? Am I going to be able to convert that story into a sale? So those questions are very important before you say, I want to do a new collection, I want to be out of the box, I want to do this, I want to do that. So I say this because I spent the last 2 years of my life where I actually did a coffee table book called Farah Khan, A Bejeweled Life, which I published in Italy, and it was printed in Italy and published in Italy, and it was released in New York. And the New York Times gave it a 5-star gem rating, and put me among Cartier. There were 5 books, 5 gems you must read, and Cartier was one of them. And I say that for all you jewelers and you designers, especially, who are looking at how to build a brand, how to tell a story, how to come up with new collections, please do buy the book. It's available on Amazon. It's available on my website, farahkhanworld.com, because it'll tell you the thought process. It, like, I began with, what are my 5 different worlds that inspire me? And I realized that I have 5 different worlds that inspired me. My first world is fluidity, which is all about time, evolution. I'm not going to go into details because you must see the book to realize what I'm saying. My second world is royal flair, because when I was younger, I grew up in Rajasthan because my father was shooting constantly in the deserts with his magnum opuses with all these arches and palaces. So Mughal Rajput designed sensibilities of art and architecture became my source of inspiration. My third world is Naturalia, which is nature, because I love nature. I'm all the time in nature, seeking nature. And I grew up as a child, I grew up outdoors in the jungles, on the beaches, in Kashmir, the valleys. So that became my third world of inspiration. My fourth is the rose, because I'm someone who believes in the concept of love, romance, nostalgia. So to me, the rose symbolized so much more. It just wasn't a flower. So my concepts come from that world as well. And my fifth and last was surreal vision, which deals with the cities I've traveled to. So I'm inspired by the art and architecture of the cities, right from modern architecture to, the old world charm, right from graffiti to art installations, right from the grays of a city to colors of a city. So I was telling my story through this book, which I have here. I'm just going to show you. This is the book. And it has,
No,
it
no,
just
I'm going to stop you here for a moment. I'm going to ask you, when you spoke about 5 different collections or 5 different thought processes, and
collection.
uh, so how long do you think is a life of a collection or a life of a thought process? Is it like a lifelong? For example, the Cartiers have always had something to do with the Indian or the elephants and things like that, or the panther, going on for many decades. There are some who last 1 year. What defines how long should one pursue a theme or a collection or a thought process?
So, Vinod Bhai, I didn't speak about 5 different collections. I spoke about 5 different worlds that inspire me. Okay. From this, I could have a million collections, because it depends on what is the world, because these are the worlds that I grew up in. They're part of me. So when I'm telling the people there to tell their story, they have to go back to their past and see what makes them who they are. Where did they grow up? What is the world that inspired them? Something around them that inspired them. Then look at that world and tap into the inspirations. So
Right.
what I do,
Come in here.
just let me finish this. What I do as a designer is I tap into maybe the Rajput Mughal era of design. I take that and I contemporize that in design. So I take an Indian motif and I contemporize that, because my customers are all over the world, not just Indians. So that's how I interpret it, because that's what Abhishek spoke about in the beginning. What makes design different is the designer's interpretation of the same thing that could be inspirational to everyone, but it's your interpretation. So that's what I was
Right.
trying to say.
Right. Aparna, you were saying something.
Yeah, so sometimes what happens is when you are designing commercial, you also get opportunities with like, and this is for a lot of the students who are working. Now, I have a client here with Emerald, and they necessarily do not probably know or would like me to create something extremely creative, but the brief that came out at that point of time or at right now was, they have fantastic factory resources. They have great technology right now with them, and they wanted me to actually look at how could I tap their resources and how could I create and bring out the best of the machinery that they have. So sometimes it's not necessarily like I had spoken about, a bird or, a parrot or something. Sometimes as designers, we are not artists always. And I think that's a very fine line that we need to know, that we also need to look at, what our clients really want us to do. And some of them may not have and may not be as blessed as Farah is, to have this kind of, a very deep rooted cultural background. So I think as designers who are here and helping out and who are listening to me today, I think it's important for us to also understand what do our employers, our, recruiters, designers, our, clients are requiring for us to do for them. So I think that's the other thing that I would also like to bring in.
Right. Okay. Abhishek, you want to add on something?
So yeah, so I would say, and I completely agree with what Farah started with. For us, also, for example, consumer centricity is key. Everything starts with the consumer. So it's imperative to know what consumer segment you are targeting. At the same time, what your consumer is asking for, how they are evolving, how they are, progressing in their lives. Hence, updating yourself accordingly. Also knowing, for example, what you're designing, how they're going to style it with, what they're going to wear it up with, where they're going to use it, what usage occasions. So when you're clear about all of these things, I mean, what comes out is very simple then. I mean, you already know the answer that this fits the bill and this doesn't fits the bill. Then I would also say, being abreast and of the latest trends and remaining ahead of the curve. By trends, when I say trends, it's not about the fashion trends, but it's more to do with the how more to do with the knowledge of how things are evolving. So if you keep a track on how trends are evolving, it kind of helps you understand how the taste of the people is also evolving, because it's
Right.
not that the trends touch everyone, including our consumers. So if you know how these trends are evolving, it kind of helps you to design something which very seemingly just fits in beautifully.
Right. Thanks. Hemant bhai, anything that you would like to add on this
Yes,
matter?
I have a different approach when I start preparing my collections or my product. Uh, I have been in the commercial jewelry business for close to 26 years when I was working with Unidesign. And at that time, over 26 years, I realized that it is not really collections, because the retailer is not always willing to experiment or take a risk unless you are willing to give him consignment. And the normal criteria by which you were judged was always by what price the guy next door sold. So when I retired from Unidesign and I wanted to do something of my own, which is Alcraftist. By the way, Alcraftist is a play on the word alchemist. Okay, like alchemists make pure metal, pure gold out of various metals. We do good things out of the various crafts. So when we decided that we want to do something which would keep me gainfully occupied, we decided that we would go into a product category where nobody can compare and come back and tell me that, oh, the guy next door is selling this for my price minus 1 rupee also. Okay, and that's how we targeted crafts. How crafts came about was that I was once a keynote speaker at the annual craft symposium, which is held by the government in Delhi. And I realized that there are a lot of people who are worried that certain crafts are dying. So that was how we started with crafts and how we started making product with crafts.
Right.
At the end of the day, we also realized that if I want to put myself in a premium position, it is not going to happen unless I really sit down and create something unique. And here you will see this. This is a bracelet made out of the Dokra craft. Okay. Now, if you will notice something else, this design is pretty standard, but look at the back of the bracelet. It has a jali. And this is all fashion jewelry. I retail this jewelry in the US. It is retailed under the name of Allcraftist. I retail it for between $99 and $599. But this is the kind of product that we create. Okay, so we have found that when you want, your goal has to be determined. My goal was to make a product where I would not sell it on a price competition under any circumstances whatsoever. And trust me, till today, we have never had anybody asking me why my product is priced the way it is. And then we make collections within that. So again, coming to collections, one of the concepts is Dokra. And then we are doing various things, like this is a collection that was made for Family Day in the US. Okay, so if you see, it's all about the family being the same. And then this kind of stuff. So we have always followed a principle where our goals are to be first, this is based on the Bidri craft, where our goals are to be, need to be addressed by whatever product we create.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Now I'm gonna take a slightly different angle to this conversation. What role do designers and craftspersons play in creating something out of the normal? How can we involve the craftspersons and the designers together? Abhishek, if I can start with you.
Yeah, I think that's again, see, one side are these new age, state of the art manufacturing technology that we are talking about. That's one part of it. Given the geography that we are in and the kind of jewelry that our audience love also, I think it's very, it's beautiful that we are privileged with such beautiful crafts, especially in the space of jewelry, and such skilled craftsmen in our country. And it's sad that some of them are also dying, some of them are not getting the due merit. So it becomes, I think it is kind of very fascinating to work with these kind of crafts. And what has worked beautifully for us also is when, for example, designer actually sat in the shop floor along with the karigar, understood what goes behind the making, So the process doesn't start with the pen and the paper. Process actually started at the shop floor, sitting with the karigar. इस piece को थोड़ा सा इस wire को ऐसे घुमाएंगे या इस combination and this and that combination put together, or you borrow one craft from here, another craft from some other geography. How you mix it together, the end result is very different. So I think it kind of there is a lot of possibility sitting in this untapped world where of the whole crafts bit which is dying currently.
Abhishek, I have a counter question or something that you can add some value here. Is that if the design teams are sitting in an office and the craftspersons are remote or away from the office, how do you bring about that exposure? Is it what can one do to bring about that to the crafts area of work?
So your question will be valid in today's circumstances of the pandemic, where we are not traveling at all, and the distances seem to be really large today. But it wasn't the case 6 months before. And I mean, it obviously requires one to travel, one to, for example, if it's about something which is happening in Jaipur, you go sit in Jaipur for almost 2 months, 3 months, get that, collection out along with the karigar, sitting there, designing it along with the karigar. And we've seen wonderful results coming out of that as well. So everything need not start with pen and paper. I mean, pen and paper is there to, for the initial build-up, initial brainstorming, what you want to do and all of that. Once you have that picture clear in your mind, I mean, there is endless possibilities if you just marry to the whole thought that crafts can also do wonders to your project.
Brilliant, lovely. Thanks for that. It's quite a nice input over there. Aparna, do you want to add to that as to how craftspersons and designers can work together? Factories, small workshops, small craftspersons, whatever we call it, guilds, whatever.
Yes, I think that is a very valid question to ask us here today, designers in a country like ours, where there is a very clear divide between the crafting person and the conceptualizing designer. Unlike in Europe and America, where the jeweler, the jewelsmith is actually also the concept creator and the one who actually crafts the piece out. And therefore, the question is very valid about how do you connect these two. And I think it is a huge challenge on how to do this, because it is there seems to be a drift growing, and there seems to be often a lot of young designers come in with a chip on their shoulders. They do not want to sit down maybe and sit with the craftsman or have a little cup of tea. Or to me, these are very small, how do I say, soft skills that we have to adopt as designers, to not let the craftsperson feel different from you. And I think for smaller organizations which do not have the deep pockets to kind of invest in designers traveling across the world or going to Jaipur or staying there, which is really ideal. Abhishek, I'm not undermining what you're saying, but I know that there would be a lot of people clued in on how do you do this. I think there has to be a kind of emotional and a certain wavelength where the craftsperson feels that you are together, because that's when he's willing to push his own barriers. He doesn't seem to have any resistance on pushing his own motives, bringing in new technologies, trying to create some craft and take it to another craft, try to mix two crafts together. A lot of them are alienated with this whole how do I say, the machine industry that's come in, and they feel threatened by it. And I think that kind of makes them even see the designer as someone who's going to be stealing their job away. So when they feel that comfort zone and when they start interacting with you, I think that's when you could actually connect through a WhatsApp message. You could talk to the phone. You could share a movie bit of a screen shot of what you have liked. You could be sketching there and then, and trying to write by his bench and saying, how about if I did this? So then I think all of that could be bridged. But it's about, for me, it's about emotionally clicking with the craftsperson, and then use all the tools of technology and travel and all of that to bring about a better product.
Great. So you were saying that there is sometimes this little feeling between being a craftsperson and a designer. There is some kind of an emotional or an egoistic or some kind of a barrier that needs to be broken.
Yes, I think it's very important that, as designers, we don't let the craftsperson feel that there is a barrier, because, I think they are maybe more important sometimes, I feel, than we are, because they actually execute what's in our mind and what comes out on our pencils and
True,
papers.
so true.
So to me, they are like, they are for me God at
Yeah.
some point. And I think they have to be given that kind of respect, which today I think the industry is trying to, but still hasn't succeeded in it. And a lot of them, when you ask them, your next generation, what do they want to do? They don't want to actually take this craft together. Their generations wants to move out of it. They want to get into another career. And there is a concern that this is a dying craft across the handicraft industry, at least. So I think we need to really put them on a pedestal, and we need to give them that vision, and the fact that they are the ones at the end of the day who are creating this, and not really treat them as someone else who's doing it, and if you're not you, someone else can, because really this is a dying craft, creating
Right. Right.
jewelry on your own.
Thanks. Farah, would you like to throw some light on this aspect of craftsman and designer working together, or how do you collaborate? How do we make it better?
I always think, firstly, I think design's three-dimensionally. I don't think two-dimensionally. So in my mind, I know exactly what I want. So when I work with whether it's a model maker or whether I work with my own, because I have a design service team. I don't manufacture, I work with different factories, but I actually do the actual design in-house. So I have model makers I work with and CAD designers. So I sit with them and I explain to them what I want, because one design can be interpreted in so many different ways. I mean, somebody can interpret the height to be higher, height to be lower, convex, concave, various ways one shape can be interpreted. So for me, it's very important that as a designer, I sit with them, whether it's a model maker or a CAD designer. I sit with them and I actually guide them through the process of what I want. So I actually draw and I show them, and then I sit with them and I work out how it's going to look. As far as a model maker, since it's more handwork, and like Aparna said, it's a dying craft. I try to do a lot of handwork, which I can work with. But we also have CAD systems and CAD designers now that have taken over the model, which is in handwork, can be done on CAD as well. Because if you have a skilled CAD operator with your software system like Matrix 9, Matrix Gold, it's very easy to do the same thing from model to this. But saying that, yes, there are a few things which are very intricate that only model makers can make. And I strongly believe we need to give them the respect, not make them feel that they're replaceable. They're very honest, hardworking people, and it's important to also. I also hear their, because everyone has their own experience. Like I have my own experience based on what I have seen, and he has his own experience. So what I discuss with the craftsman, more than just the way the jewelry looks, is the way the jewelry works. Because for me, the locking mechanism is very important. The way it's finished on the inside, the various tiny detailing to the last T is more important than just the outside, because eventually design's not just the way it looks, but the way it feels. So I sit with the craftsmen on all of this, and I work with them. And sometimes they come up. One of my craftsmen recently came out with the most amazing locking mechanism, where it was so invisible that to the naked eye, you don't even know where the lock is. It was a part of the animal hoof that I created, an animal cuff, and it was part of the hook, so you didn't know where it was. So it's very important to listen to everyone around you, because as I say to my team, design is not just one person. It's a team of creative individuals that get together to create a masterpiece, because we all bring our experiences on board and we all put our inputs, and that's what brings the magic, all of us together, not just one person. You can't
I think it's brilliantly put, that little statement. Design is not one person job. It's a team that made that final product. I think it is a very valuable statement, because we all have a chip on our shoulder, as Aparna said, but what we need is to know that we are not alone. We can't do anything alone. Great. Hemant bhai, anything that you want to add on here?
Follow a slightly different route.
As usual.
Crafts. We take crafts and then make them into something that craft has not done before. So like when we started Dokra about 7-8 years back, me and my colleague, we first went and stayed in a village called Kondagaon, which is supposed to be in the middle of the Chambal Valley, and which had no electricity till 3 years back, for 2 weeks to understand their process and how they make the product. Once we did that, then we sat down with the designers, explained to them the limitations in manufacturing that product.
So you actually reverse engineered the whole thing.
Absolutely. Because we were very sure we don't want to uproot any of the craftsmen and bring them to a place of our convenience. Okay. So we follow this route, and then once the designs are ready, again, we go and stay with them to make the first 5 pieces of each, to make sure that they're getting and understanding the concept and the flow of the design properly.
I wonder now, why is that our craftsmen are not getting into JDs and the NIFTs of the world? Why is that the craftsmen are so away from that area?
Okay. Again, coming to Dokra, when we started working with the craft, the principal who used to make it was working with the craft, but both his sons had taken up jobs in Raipur, which is about 3 hours away from that village, one working as an office boy and the other as a delivery boy, because the craft never gave them enough money. Today, I'm proud to say that both those children are back in the business. They are back into manufacturing craft products.
Right.
Okay. The reason why they do not go is that traditionally all these craftsmen that we work from, I work with Dokra workers, I work with Bidri workers from Bidar near Hyderabad, I work with paper mache in Kashmir, now starting to work with Tarakashi in Orissa. For them, they do not have enough education or the financial resources to go and stay, say, in Bombay or to stay in Gandhidham or to stay in Jaipur in a hostel and study the processes that really would help them.
I have a point of view that I'm going to add to your statement, Hemant Bhatt.
Yes,
is
sure.
that if, for example, we have Indian Institute of IIGJ in
Yes,
Mumbai,
yes.
okay, set up by the GJEPC. It's such a lovely institute where they have from 2 weeks to 6 months to 1 year to 2 year courses.
Correct.
I'm beginning to think that many of us and our team members should actually go there instead of going to a management institute. They must actually go to these manufacturing institutes that are only teaching them, not really. They're not they're not making products to sell, but they're making products. They've got casting equipment. They've got every little equipment there for hand making and use. You've got 2 floors of learning with machines, with hand tools and all that. Our people who sit in our offices, if they were to go there and spend a couple of months and come back, I think it'd be a fantastic learning.
Absolutely. We teach the people we work with. In fact, all the people that we work with in each of these crafts today is computer savvy. They know how to open an email. I send them my orders by email, and we have no challenges whatsoever. Okay. But I think one thing that is very important, and we try to protect that, is one of the conditions we make with a craftsman is that they will not modernize beyond a certain level. And that is because we want that authenticity of the craft to still be there.
Yeah.
Okay, we help them. Like they used to first have a oven where they used to keep blowing air through a pipe. Okay, today they have got a bellow, and the bellow also is connected to a cycle so that they just have to sit and pedal, pretty much like what we do in a gym on a stationary bike.
True.
But we are not letting them use electricity.
You are making it environmentally friendly, healthy, but at the same time not losing the essence of the originality of the craft.
Correct. So like
Brilliant.
the entire Dokra process uses no electricity and no product that is chemical based. Like the wax they use, it's a lost wax casting process. But the wax they use is beeswax. Instead of investment powder, what they use is a sticky soil that is available near the banks of the river. So we try to maintain all of that.
Right. Now I've got last 2 questions. I think then we'll open it to questions from everybody. What role does, after you create a collection or you create a line of jewelry, does it end there? How do you promote it, or how do you visually merchandise it? What role does visual merchandising play in this? How do you transfer this passion and the knowledge and the energy that went into creating to the end consumer? That's the question that I have. Start with Abhishek.
For me, they're not 2 different things, because it's the continuity of the story, so to say. And the story, it's about how you package the story, how you narrate the story, how you communicate that story to your audience. And that kind of, the product on its own can't speak. You need the visual merchandising help, a lot of graphics, a lot of, things that can connote or communicate your story back to the audience. And hence, I think it becomes, important on how the final product is also presented. So for us, it's a seamless thing. So from one, function to another, the narratives are passed on, and things gets worked on. beautifully in a way that the original story gets communicated back to the customer.
How does the original story, I mean, how many people are involved into this making, from the concept of the collection or the jewelry to the consumer point, which is the visual merchandising? How does the story transcend through the organization?
So,
Especially if it's a slightly larger organization.
yeah, no, so for example, it's not to do with the scale. It can just be one designer and one designer who's working on a visual merchandising piece. It can just be these two individuals. It can, for even a smaller organization, it can just be the designer who can work on your jewelry concepts. And because you're gifted with, creativity, you can also go ahead and work on visual merchandising.
So who does the visual merchandising? The designer, or the who does it? Whose role is the visual merchandising?
Yeah, so in our company, there are two different functions, but there are a lot of creative people within the visual merchandising team itself. They are again designers, but their core strength is in VM and in graphics, and they work on narrating our story, taking our story, and communicating it further to the in a retail environment kind of a scenario. So that's their core strength, and that's what. So there's a close working which happens between the two teams, and there's a lot of dialogue, obviously, which happens in between.
Right. So that collaboration makes the seamlessness into the consumer world.
Absolutely.
Great. Aparna?
So I would again, I would, agree with what Abhishek is saying out here, that a creative person does not have any boundaries or limits. I mean, if you are creative, you could actually apply your abilities to any field, and you may not excel in it, or you may not bring the best out of it, but for small organizations, I think a lot of designers can extend their personal boundaries of just being a paper pencil or a CAD designer, if they are creative, and they can lend it in helping a very well curated product display of products. And when that is not available, and organizations don't have the deep pockets to invest in a separate visual merchandising, when that is available, in those cases, I think it would be advisable to get a professional online. And I often find it a challenge to, because it's an idea that's been conceived in my head, and it needs to do justice at the end of the day. So it's challenging on how do you share what is it that you are trying to bring out completely, because you may have, say, a motif of the paisley, or you may have a motive of a certain flower, but what aspect of the flower do you want to take it? A very stylized look? Do you want an Indianized flower? Do you want a very modern contemporary flower? So if I was say doing a collection on a modern flower, may not be the rose like Farah, but say, like, let's say the gerbera. So when we do that, I would not like someone taking a very traditional way, when my entire collection is very buoyant and very full of colors, and it's very contemporary, and it's very for the young. So that all would have to translate in the way that product has been displayed. So I need to be very clear in my communication on what is there in my mind when we created this collection. And I think I need to make sure that that is transferred to everyone across the line, like from, of course, my own design team that works with me, from there on to the PR, the VM, the marketing team. And then it doesn't end there, and it carries on to the sales, because we need to do those presentations to them. We need to tell them what we thought, because at the end, they are the communication device, if I may say, to the consumer. And they are going to be the ones that communicate what's in your mind. And I may not be there at that interaction time where the sales and the customer come together. So I think I would take the onus on the creator of the product to make sure that the idea is carried through the line till the end. And I would say that companies and employers should facilitate that ability, because without that facilitation happening, the idea will only remain within me. A product may get made, but it would be probably like serving, let's just say, a pasta on a banana leaf, so which is not what we want.
Great. Farah, I have a question for you. is uh, the collections. How many collections does one ideally do in a span of, let's say, 12 months or 24 months? What do you think? What's your opinion on how many collections an average jewelry company ought to do?
It depends, Vinod. It actually depends on, again, how large is your company? How many stores do you have? But ideally, I think it would be good to follow the seasonal pattern of our season, especially Diwali, Akshaya Triti. We have Holi, we have Raksha Bandhan. Those are the times where people are buying, are gifting times, of course. I would say you could do collections 4 times a year, but you could probably do maybe 2 or 3 collections each time, because it takes a minimum of 6 months to actually work on a collection, right from the thought process to the story to the way you interpret it, the R&D, because sometimes what you imagine may not actually turn out the way you are imagining it to be. So then you have to go back to the drawing board and again use something else. Also, when you're doing a collection, there's so many things to be looked into, not just how you imagined it, but the price factor. When the consumer gets it, what is the price going to be to the consumer? So all those things have to be worked in, because what the actual cost of the product and what it eventually sells for, there's so much of a gap between that. And how does that product, does it look for value for money, in the sense, because we live in India where people buy jewelry more as an investment purpose, more than just for the purpose of jewelry. Your consumer, even though we are selling products, smaller products as MRP, the larger products, still the consumer asks how much gold, how much diamond, how much colored gemstones. That's the regular question. So it's important to see how the product looks versus the price when we're selling it. So ideally, a collection to make, whether you're doing 2 or 3 at one time, 4 times a year is ideal, or maybe 3 times a year if you want to start. 6 months per season is what it works, and I've worked and I am working with corporates to my own company, and I have different ways and different designs and different techniques we work with, and different price.
Brilliant, brilliant, wonderful. I mean, this is like a wealth of information in this 60 minutes or so. I hope that all the participants who were part of this webinar have gained a lot of insight into what is collections, what is design, what is VM, what is the entire process. I think we should allow people to ask questions. Joydeep, if you can just unmute everybody, maybe everybody can ask questions if there are any. If there's too much confusion, we'll moderate it, but just open it up, unmute everybody.
Have a collaboration and we can give you a minimum salary in a
What's the question?
He used the word collaboration. He never used the word work for me.
ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ నాకేమి అంటే నువ్వు ఇది ఎండింగ్ స్టేజ్ ఇప్పుడు ఇది గ్రాడ్యుయేషన్ ది.
Okay, I think let's ask that question again.
అంటే చిల్లర వ్యవహారం చేసే నాకు పర్సనల్ గా నేను ఇష్టం పడతాలే. నాకు నేను కంప్లీట్ చేస్తాను.
Mute them back. What was the question that Joydeep? Did you hear that right?
No, I couldn't make out what it is.
I also couldn't make out. All right. What are the other
There's
questions?
too much noise. If you can get it muted.
If anyone has a question, you can raise your hand and then you can ask. Yeah, we have a first question. Mr. Rahul, you can go ahead.
ఇప్పుడు మ్యూట్ చేసి ఇప్పుడు మ్యూట్ అయిందా? ఇప్పుడు గ్రీన్ కనిపిస్తా ఉంది. ఓకే.
Mr. Sanjay, you are unmuted. You can go ahead.
Yeah, I've actually put my question in chat. It might be a better idea to read it from the chat. Hello.
Sanjay ji, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, there's a noise, but I put it in the. Yeah, there's a lot of echo coming in as well.
Yes.
Should I, Vishal, this side? I think what Sanjay ji has done is he has put his question in the chat message. I'll read out the question on in behalf, if you do not mind. His question is, how easy, practical, relevant is it to use IT as a lever to create new differentiated designs? Data analysis, for instance, would give great insights into what customers want and need, and what is it that they may want differently.
Did I answer that?
Yes, please. Farah, go ahead. So
data analytics is very important in today's day and world, especially because of social media. And as you can see that social media is helping you gauge who your customer is by the clicks that they click on. So it's very important to probably tie up with a data analytical company to gauge who your customer is, so that you can actually target that customer that you actually want to work with. Also, we are in the world today, because of this coronavirus and COVID, very few customers are even venturing out, and maybe it's a good idea to invest in a website and look at technology, digital technology, which makes it digital to showcase your jewelry. So there are lots of new things like AR, artificial rendering, and VR, virtual reality, that can actually give your customer the look and the feel of the product. But I know a lot of you will ask me that how does a customer, maybe our customers are not, savvy with the computer to log in and see those products. But at the end of the day, you must remember that the world is changing. So we have to move ahead, and we have to get our customer to get interested in that, because eventually that's what's going to happen. You will have to actually invest in a website, reach out to your customers, because it'll allow you to reach out to the whole world, not just India or not just your geographical location. So please invest in a good website, hire a data analytical team, and target your customers, because today that's the way to make money. That's the way to do business, because that's the way of life. It's something you have to adopt and adapt into.
A very interesting question is another one that's come up for all the panelists, is that how can a B2B business create collections, and how do they handle their customers, who in turn handle the actual consumer?
Can I take this?
Please, Hemant Bhai, please.
Okay, so it's like this. A B2B person, basically a manufacturer, designer, will always be able to create collections, because at the end of the day, they are selling to the retailer, and the retailer is going to promote and sell product based on events or occasions or something that requires a themed product. Okay, so it's not that you can do without it. So when we were talking about how many collections should someone make, I make close to 20 collections a year. And why is that? Because we work different events with different partners. So we have a Mother's Day collection, Father's Day collection, Valentine's collection. We have, for India, we have collections for the Navratra, we have collections for Diwali. So you are creating product and collections. A B2B person, and that's what I would really call myself as B2B, although I do a B2C also, is that a B2B person can create collections, but they will have to be much bigger. A normal retail collection can easily be from just 5 pieces up to 20 pieces, and that's more than enough. But if you're a wholesaler, your collection is going to be more like 40 pieces so that the retailer can select 20 out of them. Okay, but yes, a B2B person also needs to create collections, because that is the way that person will sell to the retailer over and over again the whole year.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful answer. Aparna, do you want to contribute to that question for the lady who's asked this question?
Yeah, sure, I would. So I would actually, if you are a B2B customer in, and I'm presuming you are based in India, I would say that there are, unlike the West, we do not have that many seasons or buying seasons. We have like a wedding season, which technically happens almost, I would say 75% of the year, because there's a part of North India that's getting married, and then there's a part of South India that gets married. So you do have a wedding season that kind of lasts throughout. We do not really have, seasons like Christmas or Mother's Day purchases or any of those, foreign concepts that have still trickled in and that are not really pushing customers to come by, but we do have the big Dasera and the Diwali seasons. So my recommendation would be slightly different, and I would tell a B2B customer to come to spend about 6 months of his design time to actually start planning 6 different collections to his retailers, because you wouldn't know what the retailer might want. So I would say, start having meetings, discussions, start sharing sketches way earlier, because your one retailer might pick up something else and your another retailer might pick something else. And then, be ready with your product by about September, because the largest buying happens September onwards. And then I would say use the duller months, your Ashads and things like that, for investing into design time and maybe reinventing or just tweaking the collections that have been created during the larger seasons. That would be actually my way of, recommending B2B.
Okay, great. I think, yes, please go ahead.
Again, to all the B2B people, remember, you're the ones telling the collections to retailers, because the retailers are not telling stories. They're not interested in telling the stories. They're more interested in selling the product of jewelry. So it's very important for the B2B to start the collections and have storytelling and have something tangible that they can pass it on to the retailer, for the retailer to pass it on to the consumer. So all the work of design development, R&D, using different technology, materials, is on the onus of the B2B. And the more unique and different you are, the more people you'll be dealing with. And I'm saying this because I also, in my own brand, I have a B2C as far as my own brand, but I do manufacture on a for other people as well. And that's a completely different, storytelling, a completely different product. So it's important to tell your story as well. Yeah, go ahead.
There's one question that is asked by one of the participants, is that how do we take a risk when we start something and it doesn't move very well on the shelves, the consumer doesn't appreciate it? How do we take a risk like this? How can we take it, or we can? Is there a way? Any advice?
I am going to answer this.
Okay.
Because I advise a lot of my clients, and some of them are doing it, to create one small counter where they manufacture product which are truly unique and different. Promote it on social media. It is cheaper than advertising and gives you much more mileage, and also gives you credibility as somebody whom to turn to if you want something different. Okay. In business, you have to take a risk. If you're going to say that I am only going to walk the tried and tested path, then you have to also agree that the only competitive advantage you will have is price and nothing except price. And that's surely not a way to do business. Okay. So you have to venture out. You have to take risks. And if you don't take such risks, either at B2B level or at B2C level, I don't think you're going to be immensely successful.
I think what's the best thing that's happened.
Given what are things you can do?
The best thing that's happened is COVID right now.
Okay.
So,
Okay. All right.
also good.
Right. Okay. Okay.
That you can actually make collections in silver and CZs and take orders on it. You're not blocking your money.
Yeah.
And so you can actually experiment much more. You can do designs you never thought of doing. And then you take orders on it because they become your masters, and then you know the client, what the client wants to do. If the client wants to change the diamond quality or wants to change the design a bit. And I would definitely recommend that for wedding sets and bigger pieces, because we as B2B, again, down south they want very high quality, up north they want a very low quality. So it's better to invest in season masters and get your orders from your customers, your retail customers, your retailers, so that the money is actually spent by the consumer and you're not blocking your inventory or your monies.
Great, wonderful. I think it's been a phenomenal session of over 75 minutes. It's been a great learning for everyone. I must thank all of you for taking this time off and being on this panel. Much appreciate all the views that have been expressed. Thank you very much, Abhishek, Aparna, Farah, and Hemant Bhai. Much appreciate, and we look forward for another one in the time to come.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for moderating all of us.
Thank
and bringing out the best in us.
No, it's such a pleasure. Such a pleasure. Thank you.